Prime and a TV or movie adaptation that I have never seen, which is in this case Amazon's Wheel of Prime, and I compare the two to see which is doing a better job at telling a good story. I'm currently on book 2, chapter 44. I tried to have it done before starting the second season, but you know how it is.
Life, finds a way.
Most of what I give is my professional opinion, but I have sugared in a lot of my personal opinion. I just have to, otherwise I don't know how I would get through this. This is actually my second time recording my season 2 episode 1 review because my first recording came out at 4 hours, and I just can't take it anymore.
I want to see mountains again. Mountains, Gandalf.
For this second recording, I'm just gonna kind of wing it and see how it goes. But I think it's gonna be okay because so far, Season 2 seems to be doing a better job with certain writing things, such as the logical progression in a conversation. And I had a big problem with that in Season 1. I mean, Season 1, I was literally taking apart every single line that people were saying to each other because it didn't make sense half the time how they got to that line.
It's like the painting, see? From far away it's okay, but up close it's a big old mess.
So anyway, hopefully there's a little less for me to talk about in Season 2, even though my first recording said that there wasn't less. There was in fact maybe more. But for now, we are on Season 2, Episode 1, looking at its corresponding chapters, which appear to be Chapter 13 and 18 for the Nynaeve and Egwene storyline, kinda. And then for the stuff that we see in the show that's happening with Perrin and Mat and I guess Rand, that's really hard to compare. Now, in the second book, Rand and Mat and Perrin are all together with a bunch of Shienarans hunting down the horn and the knife, the dagger. So it's really gonna be hard to compare the two storylines, but I'm sure I'll find some things to talk about. And right before we dive into it, I wanna take a few seconds to share a big, huge thank you to my second ever My Precious tier patron, Steve. This was my dream patron tier that I really didn't think anybody would sign up for, and my gosh, thank you. I'm a big step closer now to living the dream life, the Hobbit life. I'm ready to crack open a keg and break out the potatoes and steak.
Potatoes?
I'll be seeing you in the Discord, Steve. The first thing that the show is doing is jumping into the perspective of the bad guys, and the book did this too. The Great Hunt did, that is. And this can be really effective if it's done right. And I do think that the show did an okay job, but it didn't use this the way that it usually is used. And I'm gonna break it down and explain. We start out with a little girl who is playing on a Aes Sedai symbol, Quendiar thing, you know, that. And she sees some Trollocs in the distance that then charge towards her.
Move, children! Vamonos!
She runs into a building and hides underneath a table, and seated at the table are several mysterious people having a meeting with the Dark One. Now, classically, you would use this opportunity to say, okay, we're going to show that the bad guys have a plan. They're gonna do something specific, and it usually involves working directly against our protagonists. This allows the writer to take a breath when it comes to the narrative following the protagonists at the beginning of the story. Harry Potter made excellent use of this trick. There are several books and movies where they started out from the perspective of the bad guys, and they were discussing plans, things that they had in store for Harry. So when we jumped back into Harry's perspective and we're following him around, we see that even though he's just going about life normally, there's a sense of an impending doom. It is coming towards him. The bad guys are actively working against our good guy. And sometimes you see evidence of that in the story, sometimes you don't, but no matter what, because of the intro, you know it's there, you know it's coming. So the tension isn't lost, even when all we have is Harry participating in the Triwizard Tournament, for example. What the Wheel of Time book did is something very similar. You have a bunch of dark friends who are cloaked, we don't know who they are, but we see little signs identifying them, like we can tell that one of them is an Aes Sedai because she's got the ring, we see that there is a Shiennaran soldier, things. It's very similar to what we have in the show. And the Dark One is going around speaking to each of them, and from the perspective of our protagonist, who we don't know the identity of at this time, he's concerned because he can't tell what the instructions are being given to the other dark friends that are present at this meeting. And he sees some of them seem afraid of what they're being told to do. Some of them seem really excited about what they're told to do. And from his point of view, he's going, crap, I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know what it is that they're doing. So I can't use that to my advantage to elevate my status. And you do, when you get to him and his instructions, you see that he is supposed to be doing something specific related to Rand and Perrin and Matt. So the book did do what you traditionally do with this kind of prologue. It created that sense that the bad guy is active and coming for your good guys. The show, however, didn't really do that. You pretty much just get a bunch of people sitting around talking about the state of the world. At one point, one of the members at this table actually asks, like, should we kill Rand? And the leader bad guy basically says, nah, I can do something with him though. You know, sooner or later he'll come under my control, essentially. And he says, in this age or another. And that eliminates all urgency on the part of the bad guys. It's not the worst thing ever that they've done in the show, but it certainly doesn't make it seem like they have to do anything. I mean, seriously, if I was one of these dark friends sitting around the table, I'd be making my summer vacation plans.
Hey, warm sun, cool ocean breezes, getting rip shit on ham.
What you say we're getting hammered?
Go on! Nice one.
Because what does it matter if you don't do anything if eventually it'll get done anyway? Then you get a couple of things done here that, okay, the first thing was something that the leader bad guy said that made me think that the show might be breaking another piece of lore, and that is that he refers to Rand as the one who is not yet the dragon. And that to me says that maybe the show is trying to say maybe he won't become the dragon, but my understanding is that you are born the dragon. Like, it's not that you become it, it's that you are the incarnation of the dragon. So, or reincarnation. So I don't know what the show is trying to do with this, and it does seem to be breaking lore, and anytime that the writers in this show are breaking lore, especially this early or something this fundamental to the story, big warning bells that they're not going to take this story where it's supposed to go, or if they do try to get to where it's supposed to go, it's going to feel contrived, trying to force all of our stories back on track. Another thing that the show does here at this point that I don't recall the book doing, and this might just be my memory, because for those of you who don't know, I take care of my sister's baby during the day, so most of my reading is actually me listening to the audiobooks while I'm carrying around my niece. But I don't recall this evil bad guy revealing that he is not the Dark One. I think he referred to himself as Baalzamon, but in the show, he straight out comes out and drops very heavy hints that he is a Shamael. So he's not even the Dark One, he's like just some guy.
I'm the guy!
Stop saying you're the guy. We all know that you're not the guy.
I mean, it does explain the ending of season 1 and the ending of book 1, where, or at least, well, especially the show, because now, Moraine did not, at least to my memory, disclose that when they get to the Eye of the World, that anybody who's not the dragon will die. So when we saw in the show that she does say this, and then they get there and she's not the dragon, but she doesn't die, I'm kind of going, well, it wasn't that dangerous then. But this does explain that this wasn't the Dark One. This was Ishamael. And we know that it's Ishamael, or at least we get that very strong hint that it is him, not only because of the results of season 1, but also because he refers to himself as being the father of lies, which is the same thing that Stepan said when he was trying to ward away Ishamael. Okay, I kind of have to wrap up what I'm talking about with the prologue here, or it'll just go on forever. But what we see is Ishamael sort of acting like I'm a friendly uncle kind of guy to this little girl. And he's like, oh, you don't have anything to be scared of. You don't have to be afraid of me. You know, I'm not that scary. And, you know, then he starts introducing this idea that what if what you perceive as evil is just a different perspective? He's like, you know, how do you prove that you're good or prove that you're evil? What if Trolloc isn't actually a monster? It's just hungry. And I could get behind this because it is sort of a more true to history and real life history that is that, you know, you have the victor who writes the history and usually portrays themselves as the hero and the fallen enemy as evil. And so I think that this can actually be okay. The problem that I have with it is that I'm pretty sure that the Dark One wants to literally destroy all of creation, and that just doesn't seem to be something that you can logically state as being a good. It is simply a lack of existence. So I don't know what the show is trying to do here. Maybe this is where it eventually goes in the books. I don't know. I haven't read them, so you tell me. I did kind of feel sorry for that Trolloc. I mean, it looked like it was really craving a gentle and kind touch from the little girl.
Hey, give me back my sock, you goat bastard!
But it was attacking like it was gonna try and eat her. So, I mean, is this like a creature that if the Dark One's around, then it's friendly, and if it's not, then it's just gonna tear you apart? I mean, seems kind of like a monster to me.
Hey, come on, we gotta get out of here.
You can still live.
Look at him. He's so cute and all alone.
But anyway, let's move on. From here, we're gonna go into the story of Moraine and Lan. We start out with Moraine carrying buckets of water from the bottom of a hill up to the top of a hill to fill her bath, which she then gets into and washes her clothes and then sits in the bath and seems to be looking at her body and her hands especially, missing the power, missing the ability to channel. It's not clear to me exactly what is going on, but I'm pretty sure that's what I mean, the show isn't doing a bad job of portraying what's probably going through her head. We see that she is distressed at this. She starts crying, curls up into sort of a fetal position, continuing to cry. I don't have much of a problem with this, except that, I mean, my gosh, that must have been a dozen trips up that hill, which would take probably all day. And if she's been doing this all day, every day, which is what is revealed later on in this episode, I mean, she should be super buff. Also, it does kind of make me go, all right, she's got a lot of time on her hands. But when I watched this episode the first time, I thought that this was like her coping mechanism, like this is how she copes. She just puts herself to work, you know, hard labor. But at the end, I really couldn't forgive her for other behavior that made this seem like it's not helping. The other thing that I thought was a little weird was the whole washing your clothes while you're in the bath.
I'm washing me in my clothes, bitch.
Now, saving some of that bath water to wash is usually what would happen, or perhaps some of it goes into a bucket for washing clothes. It's just weird being in your bath, washing your clothes. I mean, I'm not an expert on how laundry was done historically, but that was a massive bathtub, first of all. And secondly, aren't your clothes disgusting? I mean, I would want to wash my body first, then get out and then wash my clothes, but whatever, okay.
I'm trying to clean me and my clothes at the same time, save some water.
Right.
I'm saving.
Yeah, all in all, this scene did do, I think, the job of establishing that Moraine is in a sort of a depression here. She's missing the one power, doesn't really know what to do. Then we get to Lan, and he's shirtless. And he's practicing his sword forms. I don't think this actor has a whole lot of experience with martial arts or dance. I'm not an expert on East Asian martial arts, but I am an expert in one form of martial arts, and you know what? I think that balance on your feet and confidence with the swing of your blade is pretty important, and I see he's a little bit wobbly in both of these respects. But it's okay. He's good to look at for me, so whatever. Before we continue, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting, even if it's just with an emoji. It's a free way for you to support the channel, and for me, it might bring in some money from all the commercials they keep putting on my videos. Or if you're feeling really generous, you can check out my Patreon, Ko-fi, or hit the money heart thanks button down below. Now, let's get back to the shit show, which seems to be just a little less shitty than the last season. Then we get introduced to Adelaise and Varen, and even though Adelaise seems a little bit on the stupid side, she's my kindred spirit, clearly. I mean, I would be right there with her, sitting there with my opera glasses, like, I'm gonna watch this very tall drink of water do his sweaty exercises without his shirt on. And I liked that she tried to convince him that it's okay if you want to take your pants off, too. You know? Then Lan comes over when he sees a horseman go by, and he says, looks like we've got another guest who's arrived. We see that the two ladies don't know who these visitors are, and that apparently there has been 20 of them so far. And Lan doesn't know who they are either. So these are people who are arriving and bringing some sort of information to Moraine, and she's keeping everybody in the dark about it. And then we get into what I think is actually a pretty big problem in the show, and that is that they have taken the character of Moraine and amplified certain traits that were just barely touched on in the books, and there was a lot more to her in the books. And the thing that they've chosen to amplify is very unlikable. So she is coming across as antagonistic to basically everybody around her. In season 1, anytime that she wanted something, she basically threatened other people, and we see her doing that again in this episode. So I'm guessing that they're going to continue to do this. The problem is, I think Moraine is supposed to be like one of the main heroes that we're rooting for, and she's so unlikable to all of the noble and good characters around her that it makes her somebody you don't want to root for. And the only thing that I can think is that the show wants us to believe that what she's doing has, you know, it's vindictive or spiteful, but once we find out the reason for her doing all of this, we'll forgive her for all of that. And I'm like, well, I'm not, honestly, even if it was, I'm trying to literally save the world from ceasing to exist, which is what I think they're going at here, I don't think that what she's doing is forgivable. Like, is there any reason to not trust Lan with what she is doing? Because that's what goes on here, is we see that Lan really wants to know who these visitors are, and she's refusing to tell him. And the problem is that he was like her #1 trusted person for, well, we assume 20 years, right? I mean, they basically shared emotions. They knew what each other were feeling all the time. So why would it be necessary to keep certain things like, I'm doing this to save the universe, a secret from Lan? Like, he could, I imagine, he would be capable of understanding this sort of thing. But what we get here is her acting in a way that makes me feel like she is taking out her sulky frustration on the people around her by shutting them out.
That is a very immature response.
Moraine is supposed to be a very mature woman. I mean, I don't know how old she is, but I get the impression she's supposed to be pretty old, because the Aes Sedai is supposed to look much younger than they actually are, because using the one power keeps them refreshed and youthful and young looking. But yeah, so she brushes Lan off, and then when this trader from Ilion comes in, this sailor, Damon, I can't remember what his name is, but he's in the book too. He actually is in the first book quite a bit. He sails with Rand and Matt and Tom, and they form a relationship on this journey that they go on together, a friendship. And I do see a bit of a problem going forward if his storyline crosses paths with Matt or Rand or Tom in the future. They're gonna have to like figure out, how do we rekindle their friendship? Like, he's supposed to, I imagine he's going to be supposed to help them in some way, and the problem is that he'll have no reason to help them because they never met before. So I'm not sure how they're going to fix that. There are things that you can do to make that work, but it will be a challenge, and I don't have a whole lot of confidence in the writers to be able to do that. But okay, back to Moraine. We get her in her private conversation with this Damon. Is it Damon or Doman? It's Doman, I think. And he reveals that she threatened him to come and meet her. Like, he said, I didn't have a choice really coming here. And she seems to be gleeful in her control over him, her ability to control other people, in the way that she delivers her next line.
Oh, everyone has a choice, Master Doman. And every choice has a consequence.
Whatever, I do what I want.
That is so unlikable. That is something that villains do. And it's unlikable because it does seem to be, I want you to think I am enjoying the fact that I have threatened you. I don't think Moraine is that kind of person. See, in the book, she keeps up very amicable relationships with everybody around her, even the people she's manipulating. But she does that, I believe, because she wants it to be easy for her to deal with them. And another big problem that I had with this scene was that at the end, what we see is, let me get to their meeting first. Okay, so he's showing her some stuff that he has. The first thing looks almost like a computer hard drive, which, if, you know, the prologue of season 1, episode 8 was that everything at one point was far more futuristic. We had, you know, flying jets overhead, and I hope laser pistols. That would be amazing if Rand or somebody found a laser pistol. Actually, give it to Matt. That would be hilarious. But anyway, okay. So he's showing her this stuff. She's looking at it going, oh, this is before the breaking? Yeah. And then he shows her a piece of Quendyar, a broken chunk of Quendyar, and says, oh yeah, we found this. It was a part of something, it was a moon dial, and it was all broken, and she's looking at it and sees that there was something written on it before, and she's like, oh, it has writing on it. He's like, yeah, there was a poem written on the whole thing, and I have a copy of it. And he pulls out the copy and wants to sell that to her too. And he wants to sell it for 5 marks, and she's like, that's a ripoff. And he's like, okay, fine, 1 mark.
What? He doesn't know how to haggle.
1 mark? Okay. I mean, usually you'd be like, he'd come back at, I'll give it to you for 4 or 3, and she would have to go, well, no, how about 2? And then he'd have to settle, But seriously, okay, 1 mark, and he's like, sure thing, okay, as long as, I'm not going to give you any deal on the broken piece of Quendyar. And then she gives him 1 mark for the poem and says, this is all I want, good day, take off now.
Whatever, I'll do what I want.
That to me was the way, especially that she again expresses what appears to be glee at having taken advantage of him and screwed him over in this way. I mean, the impression we get is that it was not his choice to come to her, and it was a difficult journey. I mean, I don't think that they're anywhere near the ocean, are they? Either way, he had to travel far to get to her. And then for her to just pay him 1 mark? Okay, like that's a really horrible, spiteful thing to do to somebody, and then to express glee over it. Doman then says something to the effect of, oh, I guess I deserved that, and he's like okay with it.
Mrs. Brown, I want you to spank me again.
And I did not see a single thing that he did that indicated that he deserved that. And Moraine said, be careful the next time that you insult an Aes Sedai, but I didn't see him insulting an Aes Sedai. So when did that happen? Something must have been left out here is all I can say. And if I was editing this scene, I would have told him, you need to cut that bit, because first of all, it's not believable that he wouldn't be upset. And secondly, if he's going to say, oh, I guess I deserve that, we need some sort of an indication that their relationship is the way that it is, because he insulted her in some way. They have a past where he did wrong to her, and maybe he feels like he sort of owed her, in which case